everyone. In today's episode, me and Adi had a great conversation. In this episode, you'll hear us speak about mental reframes, not operating on a default setting, but choosing your setting, how to heal, methods of healing, and choosing purpose above pleasure. So if you want to help me out, I would greatly appreciate you going to whatever platform you listen to podcasts on and dropping a rating or review. On Apple, you have to scroll all the way to the bottom of the episodes and you can write a review. And on Spotify, you could drop a star rating. Either is greatly appreciated. And so, for anyone new, I do a few types of episodes. Today's episode is just like every other podcast you listen to, where I'm speaking with a guest who is a like minded individual, and we're going to break down a topic that is valuable for you guys. Number two is just me expressing my thoughts, my inner dialogue, essentially a rant, me speaking about a topic that will bring value to you. And then third, once I get some questions, you could send these questions into agliscuscapital@protonmail.com. And when I get some questions that are quality, I'll address those in recordings and videos. So those are the 3 episodes. If you enjoy, I appreciate you. Share it with a friend. That's all I ask. Enjoy the conversation. 2 people can have the same situation and we can make a conscious decision to look for the best of that situation or to find anything to complain about. And in almost every circumstance, there's going to be some pros and some cons, but the choice comes down to us. Do we want to frame our perception to be a bit of an optimist, to seek for solutions, or are we just torpedoing and aiming at things to complain about? Like, how do you feel about changing your perception and looking to color your lens in a way that supports and encourages your best self? Do you have any experience with working through that and focusing on the psychology?
Oh yeah, that's actually an excellent segue into. It's kind of like my backstory of how I came to be on Twitter and everything around that. So, and I love this point. And I'm a big fan of mental reframes. I'm a big fan of like being deliberate with your perception. I honestly now, so I'll get into it in a little bit. I have, from my experience over the past 2 to 3 years, I'm a big fan. I firmly believe that like perception is, as you said, the lens that we view the entire world through. Like there is no objective reality that I've seen after like observing myself and other people. Everything is perceived, and it's perceived through a whole bunch of biases and whatever mental models you've accumulated over your life. 99% of them, in my case, were like subconscious or unconscious. I didn't choose to pick them up. I just picked them up from my folks, from society, from school, colleges, XYZ. And that leads me a little bit into my story. Like I was an investment banker for 9 years before I came to Twitter and started doing whatever I'm doing. I'm still figuring it out. But I got burnt out like 4 or 5 years into that job, and then I had a full-blown sort of meltdown phase lasting 3 years, from 2018 to 2020, end of 2020. That's when I began therapy. I did therapy for like 10 months. I did a lot of work there. So to your question of whether I have an experience in terms of altering my perception, yes, because that those 10 months was the first time that I actually actively worked on thinking what I knew, why I thought the way I thought, what was bothering me, and how I could change it. So I've tried a lot of the usual stuff, nothing sort of groundbreaking. Things like journaling, gratitude, just a lot of self reflection, meditation, strength training. I think that is also an exercise in perception more than anything else. Apart from building your body, you're essentially training your mind to get used to showing up every day and get used to like pushing and overcoming your internal resistance. I and you see me and the fact that we're talking today and I've been writing on Twitter for the better part of this year is a testament to the fact that I did manage to change something. Doesn't mean that I still don't struggle with my mind because it's still pretty much a monkey, but I've gotten better at it. I actually quit my job last year in around November after getting better and realizing that is something that I didn't want to do. And pretty much without a plan, I just came to Twitter and started writing online. I'm trying to figure stuff out, but it's been an interesting journey. So yeah, I think I'm a big fan of all that you said, just from experience, nothing else.
And the experience, it's cliche, but it is the best teacher. If we read a book, if we hear
Yeah,
something, it can be internalized, but it can't be felt to the
it can.
to the truest level until you do go through that yourself.
Yep.
And what you mentioned about the mental models, the biases that we accumulate throughout time, that is an idea that I'm trying to deconstruct in my personal life a lot because I've gotten to a point, I know where I came from and I know how I feel now, and I know what the gap in between is, but figuring out the most efficient and correct way to express all of that personal experience is a challenge for sure.
Yes. Yep.
And I think our ability to write links to our ability to think.
Yep.
Writing is just decluttering our minds and clarifying, articulating, becoming more precise with our thoughts. But to really deconstruct our entirety of experience and share it with someone in a manner that is helpful to them, that's a big task.
It is.
And I'm curious about how or what little pieces have you learned throughout your journey that have helped you become better at sharing what you now know?
That's a good question. And you brought up the point of writing. So first of all, just a tangent, I don't consider myself a creative person as such because before this, I've never really done anything of this manner. It's a very sort of like stereotype in the Indian society from on how my career paths went towards banking, and then eventually I just got fed up of it. But I have special love for writing. Um, Ironically, writing was one of the things that burnt me out in my job because I did it for 6 years in a very constrictive sort of fashion in a corporate language, legal setup. I used to write and edit thousands and thousands of pages of documents. I got good at it, but it was extremely boring as hell. But when I came to Twitter, I took a few courses. I got exposed to the act of sort of creative writing and just sharing your thoughts. You're learning something, you're sharing your personal experiences. I even shared a bit about my story that I briefly discussed with you. Uh, that's and you very well put. It's hard. First of all, I think a lot of people joined me in one or two of the cohorts that I did, and a couple of people commented on how I was able to sort of relatively fast, quickly put out content out there. It's just because I've been doing writing in a sense for a long time. It's hard to first articulate your thoughts because I think you don't even know what you think. Like, you have thoughts in your head on a particular topic, there's just a chaotic mess in your head, and you sit down to write. And I think that's why it's hard. You have to actively wrestle with them. Even after like 8, 9 months of consistently writing every day, I have days where I just sit and I don't know what I want to write or I want to type, even on a single idea. either jamming too many ideas there, or thinking that I write something and then I read it later. I'm like, what the hell did I just write? It takes a lot of practice and patience. I think that's where most people struggle. The second is, I think, sharing is scary. Uh, I am a big fan of Stephen Pressfield. I don't know if you've read his book, The War of Art. Uh, it's I have one quote from there that I always remember. He says that nobody, I don't remember verbatim what it says, but one has to complete his healing before he's ready to do his work. And by work, he means anything creative, where you share something that you create, either writing or a podcast or art, with the world. That really resonates with me. If I was, for example, in my earlier state, when I was in my bad depressive state, I wouldn't have shared anything. Honestly, like I scared to even open up to people at my home about what my problems were. And I've actually, I think 3 months back, I wrote a Twitter thread sharing this very journey, which blew up for me. And a lot of people since then have also asked me. I think vulnerability is powerful, but you have to do some healing. And I honestly don't know there is any shortcut to doing that. You need to spend time to actually heal a little bit before you'll be able to share, I feel, personal bits about your life. I think they're very valuable. Just from a few experiences that I have shared my journey, and I've shared about that episode in an essay that I wrote and that thread, and a lot of people reached out to me to ask for help or guidance. I did what I could do. So I think that's the power of sharing something personal, but it's scary. I've met a lot of new friends
Mhm.
that are unable to do so. They just feel scared or fearful of judgment, and it'll come. I received hate for sharing bits about myself. You need to, I think, mentally be prepared for what you're doing. And maybe it gets easier.
Mhm.
I've not been in this game for that long. So,
Yeah, something I repeat to myself and others often is specifically pertaining to the gym, but I'm sure it can apply to a bunch of different avenues, is it doesn't get easier, but you do get stronger.
yeah,
I've seen my body go from where I'm okay to being completely impressed. And every single day is still terribly difficult. So,
I agree.
and that's okay when you accept it and you understand that this is for my mind. This is for my whole being. This is
Yep.
not just for one piece. It's not solely to look good. But what you mentioned that I loved is before you share anything, you have to do your own healing. And just because you're not at the point where you think you have something to share, you might have done some healing. Like everyone's journey is a bit different. And
Absolutely.
and you're not going to be perfectly ready before you
Absolutely.
start anything. But at
Good
the
point.
same time, you have to heal. You can't not put in the work before
Yep.
you begin to share things. But the amount of work that has to be done before you start sharing, that's a foggy line.
Yeah.
Because each individual, like you mentioned, we have our personal biases and experiences that shape everything about how we perceive and how our brain works. So, like, what would be some practical, maybe, what's the word? Feelers. That's what I'm getting at. Some practical feelers for one's level of healing. Like, could you run me through some spaces in time where you recognized, okay, I'm feeling like this, and then like where you began to notice you were progressing?
Yeah, sure. That's another interesting question. So honestly, I don't know if it's practical, but I can share a bit about my journey. from how I went from that month in October 2020 when I began therapy, which was at a very low phase in my life, and then how it evolved over the next almost 1 year till the end of 2021, where I felt confident enough to quit my job and just, I don't know, do something crazy, like write online without much of a plan. So I began at a place which is, I was in a big hole, sort of like when I started the first chat that I had with my counselor back then. I couldn't even articulate my problem. That was the state that I started at. I just ranted a bit of nonsense for half an hour, and everything is out of control, and a lot of overwhelm, and this and that. Uh, he asked me to do a very interesting exercise. Then I remember it. I only did it for those 3 months, honestly, because it takes some work, but I've not done it since. He asked me to record my mood like 3 4 times a day, morning, afternoon, evening, night, and then jot a very small note on something related to that mood. So I started noting down. I didn't have anything else to do. So, and I did it for I think 3 months. Most of the days I would just fill five because I didn't know or I forgot to record it. I was like, okay, I just put a five, which is a neutral mood. But eventually, over time, when I started reviewing that, I started seeing when I did certain things, my mood would drop. Like at that point in time, I was eating a lot of crap food. Whenever I used to do that, I would be at like a three. And this is all subjective, obviously, but you can sense that when you're feeling at least neutral or a little bit happy or down in the dumps. So, or when I for example, binged TV or played my PlayStation like 6 hours straight and wasted a lot of time, then again I'd be like at a two or three by the time it ended. After a while, consistent patterns started emerging. Slowly and slowly, I started taking them out. I actually culled a lot of stuff, including selling my PlayStation outright and all my games. Like, I'm done with this shit. Go away. That exercise ended. Then he started me with some self-reflection exercises. I ended up taking a sabbatical from work. And for the first time, I think 10 years or something, I had no work to do during my day. So I spent all my time doing experiments with my time. My sabbatical ended with a very mini break around 1.5 months after I started, and I resumed my work. At that time, I used to work like 12 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week. It was crazy workplace. The difference for me was, and it is a very subjective thing, before I started that break and started my therapy, I was constantly stressed out by what is happening, what am I doing, and torturing myself. I came back a little stable. I would say like 10-15% more stable, which is a massive difference if you think how I reacted, because I was very conscious. I was like, and it takes work. It's still hard work. I slipped a lot over the next 10 months, regressing on whatever I was trying to control. But I just felt a little emotionally stable. From when I started recording my mood, did it for 3 months, took that break and came back. I was at a point where I didn't feel that I was going to die every day. So to say, not to exaggerate, it was like, okay, I can get through the day. Even if it's a lot, I can get through the day, I can take a few breaths and compose myself. That is one level of healing, at least it was for me. Then I kept doing that, and the journey is pretty much like this. It's not a straight line, it's not a straight slope. You do something, then you slip and curse yourself for a few weeks, then you get up, do it again, and the cycle keeps on repeating for 6 7 months. And it slowly got better and better and better. Eventually, I came to a point when therapy also sort of concluded. I started feeling that my sessions were not as constructive because I had reflected a lot. I'd filled like 3 4 journals by then. I had done a lot of stuff. I, that was another stage of my healing where I felt that I don't have a lot to say. Whatever I had to say, and he had to ask me, my counselor, he had done that. So that is another level of my healing where I felt for the first time a little self-confident that now I can sort of handle things on my own. Let's try that. So I did. I did my work for another 3 months after that, solo. My one project went absolutely nuts. I worked for 90 days straight, 10, 12 hours a day. And by that point, I realized that it's again happening. If I don't do something now, I'll just continue into forever. Then I decided to take a call. I sat down calmly, sort of thought about it, discussed with my family, my wife, and I decided that I wanted to quit. And that was a scary decision. I think that's one of the craziest things that I've done in my life. I'm not really a massive risk taker till now. That was another level of feeling. To be able to maybe have that confidence that you quit your job and try something else, uh, and face that uncertainty, which I've been doing now for almost like 10, 11 months. And during this time also, I've had a lot of ups and downs. I've had phases where I'm like, what the shit did I do back then? But then I'll remember, and then there are good days and I'm like, I'm feeling very confident. Okay, this is good, and I'm very self-disciplined. So I think it's a lot of ups and downs, very subjective. You start feeling a sort of confidence in yourself that I'm fine with sharing my story. Also, by the time that I quit my job and started writing online, I had started telling people also of what I had been going through. I had been very open with my colleagues at work, my friends, then my family also. That confidence also came through, and that's actually the true sign of healing. I'm not saying that I don't have problems. As I said, the past 10 months this year, I've had a lot of, again, ups and downs, new problems, sort of leveled up problems, I would say. I had base level problems back then. I improved on them, grew, and then new problems come up. So, as you said, it's not like I'm going to become a perfect being with no problems and I'm like an absolute Zen monk. No, I lose my shit more often than I'd like to. No, but yeah, you get a sense of confidence and then you can start at least experimenting a little bit. And that depends on the person, like how much are you comfortable with sharing.
Yeah, the idea that we get to a destination, once I get this, I'll be
Hmm.
happy. That just
That's
deserves to be in the dumpster. I used to think like
uh,
that. And I would tell myself, well, life will be easy once I get this much money. And then I've realized, see, I'm not rich yet, but I do understand that internal problems require internal work. And
absolutely.
and also your external is a reflection of what's going on inside. But I used to have these limiting beliefs where you see a rich person in a nice car or anything related to financial freedom, and I wouldn't respect that person. I wouldn't actually step back and ask myself, hey, I wonder how much work they had to do to earn
Yep.
that. I would always have this skewed point of view, thinking that they did something bad. I had a poor relationship with money.
Yep.
And now into the future, it links with that reflection. How do I feel when I do a certain activity? When I thought like that, I didn't realize what it was making me feel. But after developing a bit of mindfulness, now I understand that those thoughts were just diminishing any dream, any potential that I would become rich and financially free myself,
Absolutely.
because I didn't want to be that bad person. But
Yeah.
what you mentioned about recognizing how when you ate junk food, that's when you felt like a three. That's when you felt lower on your mood scale. When we put that effort in to just be a little bit more aware, to
Yeah.
consciously focus in, okay, did I just do a 60-minute weightlifting training session? Sure, I'm tired, but tired isn't the right word. I'm content. I
Yep.
maybe I'm exhausted, but it's a healthy exhausted. I
Absolutely.
earned this feeling rather
Yep.
than how do I feel when I sleep in? You feel good for maybe 1 minute, but then when you get up 30 minutes, an hour later, you're filled with guilt and regret.
Yep.
It's just okay. We track, pay attention to how we feel, what makes us feel that way, and you're going to make progress. And then I loved where you segued or went into the point of you still lose your cool. There are still moments that you
Yep.
aren't doing good. Same for me. I've gotten so much better than where I used to be. I still
Yeah.
have bad moments, still make mistakes. I still do activities that I know I shouldn't be doing. Now,
Absolutely.
it doesn't happen every day, it doesn't happen every week. And I think the takeaway is you're never going to be perfect, but if you can be better, if you can make the mistake less often and you can reroute quicker, you're
Yeah.
doing good stuff. It's easy to be hard on ourselves, right?
Absolutely, man. I think that's the default setting. So you don't have to do anything to be hard on yourself. I think most of us never really spent time. I know I didn't. Nobody sort of taught me. And I don't use that as an excuse. It's just I never stopped or paused long enough to actually pay attention to that. I just assumed that's how it is. And again, I will say I have good and bad days. I like my good days, as you said, are now more than my bad days, but some like I have phases at times. Maybe it's a day or two and I'm off. Sometimes even a week or two where I'm like completely not feeling all right. That's all right. I had gotten into the habit that I still at least did my basic two, three things. And like one of the biggest things that you also I think said for me was going to the gym. I never exercised like for 33 freaking years. Not like a complete desk jockey doing work. I started like very seriously this year and I fell in love with that sort of routine. It was hard, as you said, exhausted, but whenever I ended a session around an hour, I used to feel really satisfaction of having earned that exhaustion. And eventually it got easier. Like I didn't even have to push myself because I actually enjoyed going to the gym. Even if I was feeling shitty, it became an outlet for sort of feeling better because I knew if I went and did something, even when I was feeling low or bad, I 99% of the time I used to feel better. Uh, so yeah, there's honestly no perfection. I don't think anyone achieves it. We can keep using that as an excuse to not do anything, but that also doesn't really lead anywhere. I think I read two things that I really love. Uh, I read somewhere that sort of the point of life is less not to win but to grow. And I think that is one way of saying the same thing. It's not about the destination; it's about the journey. So you can keep growing every day, even when you're falling down constantly. Doesn't matter as long as your trajectory is at least facing upward. That is a massive improvement. Even if it's slow, some days it's fast, some days it's crawling. As long as it's not stopping or going backwards, I think he should be grateful. And obviously doing the work because it doesn't happen on its own. Yeah.
Right. What there there was an idea I wanted to mention, lost the thought, but it might come back.
No worries.
Something that I think can help everyone is the understanding that you need to have some basic tasks that are mandatory. Like today is my off day from the gym, but
Mm.
it, even so I have a list like almost everyone probably does of things they need to get done, what you're
Yep.
working on that list there are tasks or not. I'll rephrase, not on that list there are tasks that are mandatory for me to accomplish. It's just I've routinized, I don't think that's a word.
Yeah. It's
Maybe it is routinized. I don't know. I've put them into a structure where
yeah.
the gym, eating healthy, those get done no matter what.
Yeah.
Why do they get done no matter what, but they're not on my to-do list? Well, because I've gotten good at them to where I don't need to be reminded to do them. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, they are the most important task for my entire
Absolutely.
day. If I don't fuel my body with the right high quality food, then my cells, my skin, my brain does not operate at its max potential.
Yeah.
And having these baseline tasks, like a few of the other ones are just 5 to 10 minutes of meditation, and to study, whether it's
Hmm.
a entrepreneurial focus or a psychological focus. I need to study either business or psychology for at least 1 hour a day. And
Nice.
then it, the benefit to this is, even on your bad days, you're going to get these mandatory tasks done. In
Hmm.
your bad days, they won't be horrible days. They might not be great days,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean?
Yep. Absolutely. No, no,
Some
I love that.
sometimes it's about mitigating risk, because
Yeah,
there's
it
always
is.
going to be risk.
Oh yeah, and there's always going to be shitty days, honestly. Like there is no avoiding human beings are emotional creatures unless you're a piece of unless you're a rock, like a literal rock that or a psychopath that doesn't feel anything. You're going to have emotions. You're going to have arguments, fights, just feel low, feel like shit for some reason at times, no reason at all. So I think having that list of like non-negotiables is absolutely crucial. And I also love that idea. And like I used to say that like decoupling your emotions from those two, three things that you need to do. As I said, for the most part, and I still again, it's not perfect. There, like 90%, which is like a significant improvement for me. I had reached a stage where like I would do writing and some form of activity, gymming mostly, or go for a walk, even when I was feeling shitty. It was nothing else, and a bit of reading, like you said, like nothing in particular. Also, I just read. I have a lot of books lying around in my room, in my phone. So do these, and yeah, I still won't feel the best, but like it's like you get through, and you don't completely come to a halt, and then I feel momentum is also a real force of nature because if you have something going, even if it slows down to a crawl, as long as you don't stop, it's just easier to bounce back, honestly. And I think I viewed it as that. Like if even if I continue the gym, like that has been my baseline habit that I've developed over the past 2 years. Even if I leave writing, if I won't journal or write online, just getting some movement in idly going to the gym just keeps me in a sort of stable state of mind that I can like bounce back quickly. So yeah, I love that idea, and that everyone can do that. Honestly, it just takes some practice, like most things.
See, it's always been interesting to me how a task like going to the gym, it's hard to do before you get there, but
Yep.
then you feel so good afterward. It's the same idea as sleeping in. You you
It's
you
the opposite.
feel exactly. And it's
Hmm.
this diabolical way that our brain operates.
Yeah, man.
Like, we're wired for safety and comfort, but
Yep.
we're also wired to be strong, to embrace being uncomfortable, to
Yep.
step into our fears. So, see, I love Jordan Peterson. I know you mentioned Stephen Pressfield. I have Ryan Holiday's Daily Stoic on my shelf. I have The Obstacle is the Way,
Nice.
and I haven't read them yet, but it's better to have books to read rather than to have uh, none. So
I agree.
I I'm off on a tangent right now, but point is, Stephen Pressfield, I learned about him through Ryan Holiday. So that's
Okay.
why I was bringing up him. But let's, I might have lost my train.
I was talking about Jordan Peterson. So I recently skimmed through the 12 rules of life. I just read that. I've not consumed a lot of Peterson, but I really love them. I haven't read the entire book. I read books very randomly these days. But I skimmed through a lot of his rules. I didn't read the whole Bible mythological angle there, here and there, but I read the first 3 4 pages of each chapter and the last 3 4 pages of each chapter, which is the essence of his rule. And then I read all his rules, and I like them.
That's funny. That's very funny. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly why I brought Jordan up, but point is, I know so much of what I've learned is from Jordan. I guess we can segue into the importance of what you're consuming, both
Absolutely.
in a mental standpoint, but also in physical reality. I mean, if even with all the work that's been done, if I don't consume the right information, I can go back to being in hell
Yeah.
immediately. Are you very specific with the information that you do consume?
Yes, I have. I would say I've become very specific. Like I maybe have become too specific to the point that now I annoy my wife. So uh, back then, if you come, like I have my life is to me it's demarcated into like three phases. Like 2018, before that I was oblivious. 2018 to 2020 and 3 years was torture. And then post to 2020 when I started healing, and this is like the third phase. Uh, till that time I was like consuming everything and anything, and you name it. And I know, like, since you are on Twitter, I think it's a Twitter trope by now, but it's not a joke. Like news, uh, general Netflix consumption, mindless consumption, as to say, which you can just shut your brain and just keep watching. Crappy books, even songs, man. Like I now view everything as first of all, information is diet for your mind. Like food is energy for your body. Information is energy for your brain and mental state of mind. If you keep having the fried chicken equivalent of information diets, you get mentally obese. And I was. Now I've come to a state where I honestly, as I said, I bug my wife. I rarely watch Netflix. I sold my PlayStation. Like that was one of my biggest time sinks. I played so many RPGs, man. Like it's thousands of hours gone into leveling up fictional characters. Like I just went up one day and sold that shit, sold my remote, sold my games, and my wife was like, "What the hell just happened to you?" I'm like, this shit has to go. That went Netflix sort of. It's still there because my wife watches it. I'll watch it maybe once in a month if something comes up. I really like Rick and Morty, for example, so I'll just watch that one episode, 20 minutes. Uh, I've stopped watching the news. I'm like absolutely clueless on most current events. If there's something important, somebody else tells me. Mostly my wife will tell me. Or my mom will tell me, like, she's like, "Oh, did you know about that?" I'm like, "No." But thank you for telling me. So that's about it. I don't need to know more about that shit because I can't really do anything about that. And then most of the social media also, I just up and deleted everything except for Twitter because I use that to write. And in that also, as I said, I don't have notifications on. I don't usually go to the feed because even if I do, sometimes I do. When I get caught up in the algorithm, I don't want that shit. So I usually engage through a software. I just open Twitter to check the DMs because I don't have a software to put that out of Twitter. So what else? Songs. Yeah, I used to listen to whatever shit I came up. Eventually, I stopped listening to sappy ass songs like crying over something or the other. Stopped that. Mostly listen to instrumental music these days or something else. Books. I think I just books. I think is I've had better taste generally. I never used to read complete junk, but these days I don't have time honestly. So I've stopped reading fiction. I just keep skimming through a lot of non-fiction these days. At any point in time, I have like 4 or 5 things going on. I skim between books, read something here, there. So yeah, this is sort of like the consumption that I do, and I try to make it more and more intentional. So I don't really miss it. And like sports, yeah, I used to watch like I was an ardent English Premier League fan. I used to follow teams and like get really emotional and then get really destitute when somebody is losing. Oh, my life is over. So that also like it automatically stopped because once I started focusing on something else, and I was like, "What the shit is that?" I don't even miss it. That is the funny point, and it's hard to explain why I don't. That's why the point of bugging my wife because we used to do a few things together, and I'm like, I don't feel like doing it. So I have to make time to do that. at times. So I still have
Mm,
one or two sort of junk consumptions during the
mm,
week.
mm,
So I'm a big nerd. I like reading like Japanese comics. I don't know if you're aware, called mangas. So I've been reading that since I don't know school. So I just love that. I read like spend 1 hour every week reading that when a new chapter comes out. Apart from that, it's mostly a lot of writing, psychology books, self improvement books. I've started listening to podcasts
mm.
these days. Started listening to YouTube. I'm trying to learn copywriting. I don't know anything about it, so all my consumption is mostly like very deliberate now, and it's maybe too anal for some people. It's not for anyone, everyone, because some of my friends have also asked me what you do, and like I tell them, tell your PlayStation or stop watching the news and do something else, and they're like,
Mm.
oh, that's too much for me. Like, okay, that's what I'm doing, so you can choose what you want to do.
Eh, it's that idea that it really isn't for everyone. And see, that's tough because I know how much better I feel now compared to the past, but I also know how hard
Yeah,
the journey of waking up is hard.
it's painful.
It's almost like going back to being oblivious
Yeah,
is a good idea, but there isn't any going back. Like once you begin to see things
yeah,
in the new
absolutely.
way.
Can't go back.
So for me, what you mentioned about the leveling up your pixel character, I was having this little crisis within my mind maybe 2 years ago. I there's a game that I love, but I could not get myself to play it. Like part of me is telling myself play the game, but then another part of me is like you cannot spend your time on that game. And
Yeah,
I was in this just weird space, like I was
yeah,
being split, and I never went back to that game. I Video games definitely have their purpose. I've played like you thousands and thousands of hours, but now I think life has seasons and phases.
yeah.
And
I
this
agree.
phase is a no video phase, no video game phase for me.
Yep.
Like, that's just not where I can be putting my focused attention because
Yeah,
we all have 24 hours in a day. So,
yeah,
what's the difference between someone who is ripped, rich, and intelligent, and then someone who is broke, overweight, and miserable? We all
yeah.
have the same time. It's what we do with that time. And
Absolutely.
that leads me into focusing on what's in our control.
Yeah,
It's funny what the news does, what sports does to us. They are forms of distraction
yeah,
because they make our conscious think that we don't control how we feel because we're putting our emotional weight, our emotional feelings
yeah,
into external
yep,
events. But in reality, okay, we control a few things: our thoughts, our energy that we show up with, and our actions. So I need to focus on those three categories, really.
absolutely.
And once I do that, oh, wow, I can actually create a routine, a structure that I don't hate my life. And that's awesome. So then
Yeah,
it really comes down to you mentioned this idea of you don't know how you forgot about the other things or began to become so passionate about the right things like reading and writing and self-improvement, self-development. What I've came to realize is we have limited attention. So if I'm focusing on reading, having a podcast conversation, listening to a podcast and taking a few notes, that means I'm not focusing on the other things. So it's like life is trade-offs.
yep,
If I go to the bar multiple days a week, I'm not going to the gym multiple days a week. I can't do both. So
yeah,
I say, okay, I'm good on the bar. I'll take my genetic potential. How
yeah,
good of a physical specimen could I become? I don't know. So I'm gonna
yeah,
Try and figure that out. I know that was a lot.
Abs- no, that's absolutely a couple of points. I don't know if I'll remember all of them, but yeah, or you mentioned opportunity cost towards the end. That's a big point. Like at any point you're doing something, you're not doing something else. So, and that there's a flip side to this as well. So there is a positive side, like you mentioned, and I think that's what makes it easier for me to, for example, my biggest example is my PlayStation. So that thing used to be my life. A lot of my friends used to associate with it. We played a lot of games. They're still shocked and keep asking me, "Oh, aren't you going to buy a PS5?" I'm like, no. So why would I do that? So, like, I don't even miss it because, and I'm very surprised. The mental decision to do that was just like a flip of a switch. And like, since I started focusing on there, my time automatically for other distractions like sort of evaporated over the course of a few days. And I do it from time to time, but it's very limited. And I feel distractions also have their place. If you do your work, if you thought it through and you do your work, you can spend some time unwinding. That's all right. Don't have to be a tightly wound spring 24/7, 365 days a year. But the problem with most people, including me, was that you do it in the opposite direction. So you distract yourself all the time. When you feel like shit, then you distract yourself more because you feel like shit. And there's like a circular loop that keeps on going on. And when you break it, as you mentioned, that's a very painful experience. It's like breaking out of the matrix, man. That's the only analogy that I have. And like you're lost at sea, figuring out what the shit is going on, and what do I do, and which way is up and down. So I think that's what I experienced for 2 to 3 years. Uh, but yeah, I also lost my train of thought. But towards the end, the opportunity cost thing you mentioned, it's absolutely correct. But yeah, as I remember. So the flip side of opportunity cost is, for example, I have just had a baby daughter 2 months back. So whatever schedule that I built over the 10 months is again been upended completely on its head. Because right now I don't have any schedule as of 2 months. Because most of my time goes in handling my child with my wife. She is also recovering. So yeah, up at any goddamn hour of the day, like 4 a.m., 3 a.m., 6 a.m. And I used to get up at 5 a.m. to do my thing. I used to go for a walk, journal, write. Nothing is happening right now. I'll build up a new schedule now. So the opportunity cost aspect for me and the personal problem that I face is balancing time spent with like family and people that are really close and important to you and doing productive things. I want to do both.
Hmm.
So this is like the flip side of it. I have to deliberately shut off my brain because it's like active all the time now. That's like a negative side effect of doing so much, maybe self improvement or whatever you want to call it. I have difficulty taking pauses or resting, for example, and I think that also has its place. Spending time with my daughter, doing nothing, just spending time with her. She's real time. So she doesn't have much to contribute. I'll just spend time with her, fool around, maybe read her a book. She doesn't understand it, but that's also time that's sort of well spent. And I have to consciously make that decision because I'm not doing other things. I'm not writing as much these days, and I'll slowly build up a new schedule. But I think that's a flip side of opportunity cost of how to balance that out. Something that came to mind.
I like that a lot. And it's interesting how humans can be different ages, different situations all across the world, but there are a good amount of principles and rules that if we apply to our lives get better, our moods get better, and
Hmm.
everything improves. I had an absolute blast speaking with you today. If we want to send the audience to listen and read, learn more about you, where should we send them?
Oh, I am most active on Twitter. Uh, so my handle is a little of a mouthful, but it's Aditya Aditya the Verma Verma. So I'm most active on Twitter, and I also write a weekly newsletter right now. Uh, and yeah, so you can DM me there, or if you go to my newsletter on Substack, the link is there in my Twitter profile. You can even email me. I think my email's there. I usually respond. I just love chatting with people around these kind of topics, writing, self-improvement, productivity, whatever. Anyone who's trying to like live more intentionally rather than just coasting through all of life. So and it's great chatting with you as well, Justin.
Do you have any little points you want to leave them with? But if not, I'm wishing you a great day.
No, man, I think the essence of our all of our chat was this, and I firmly believe that sort of existed in this world for 32 years. That ended up ended up with me being in a miserable place. But you can choose to live life instead of just coasting through, and that's a choice. People don't like hearing that word because that makes them feel bad about themselves. They think that, oh, I can't do anything, but you can. I despise victim mentality, and I think it's a disease. I've been a victim for 32 years. But nobody is essentially a victim, and like you can just choose to do whatever you want. All of that you've discussed is a choice you and I made. Deliberate choices every day. Sometimes don't feel like making those choices, but we still make them. So I think that's all you need to know. There is nothing else more complicated. Uh, it's both simple and hard at the same time. For those
Yeah.
who can do it, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Powerful. Powerful. I thank you so much, my friend, and wishing you a great day.
You too, Justin. Take care.